We all should be glad that we don't experience life the way the laws of physics describes, because that could be boring. Rather, we humans have evolved a series of critical time illusions which dress up the laws of physics to make our lives as glorious as they are. I will now take you through these illusions and hope to convince you that the illusions our brains evoke make life the beautiful experience that it is and shape who we are. A recently invented virtual reality backwards in time machine will help make the case. The four most important illusions of time are 1. Motion, 2. Temporality, the before-after experience, 3. The illusion of living in the present, which leads to a feeling of free will, and 4. Persistence, the illusion that we are the same person through time. The brain has two systems to experience time. A system for real time, a time that is described by most physicists, but also an illusory system that supplements and enhances the experience of time for a better life. It is the product of natural selection. Let's look at the first illusion of time, motion. You may be surprised to learn that motion is a perceptual illusion for humans. And in physics, motion is not fundamental. Movement is what counts. Movement is the change in position of an object from point A to point B over a given time interval. The interval in between is not part of movement. That gap is where the motion occurs. Movement is discrete, but motion provides continuity. Thankfully, our brain converts discrete perception to continuous perception. You are familiar with the illusory motion that our brains evoke in response to the frames of movie film, as seen here in this Charlie Chaplin clip. But not many years ago, all visual perception has been demonstrated to be discrete, with a superposition of illusory motion. The continuous wagon wheel illusion was the key experiment. You have witnessed it yourself when viewing a hubcap on a moving car. As the car rotates faster, the rotating hubcap suddenly starts to go backwards. That is because the brain, like a camera, takes 10 to 12 snapshots per second. When the target accelerates, the frames that the brain captures are of a different part of the wheel, and it appears to reverse. Think of it this way. The brain paints on the motion of illusion between the frames. The brain fills the gaps. But what if there was no illusion of motion? Actually, we would still be able to function. Most of the visual information in the outside world would be received, but not aesthetically. When a hunter chooses to get his prey, he would still be able to follow it across the sky. However, it would have a more stroboscopic appearance. But dinner for the family would still be possible. The second time illusion is temporality. Temporality is defined here as the before-after experience you get when one event follows another. The light in a room turns on. You know the order, the chronological order of dark and then light, but you also experience a flow. It is referred to as the flow of time, but that experience is completely illusory. To prove it, consider this scenario. You witness a ball being kicked by a boy. You see it hit the net. The information you received is that of a kick, a reception, the interval of time between events, and that you were there. Now suppose you sneeze and miss the events. But someone else took very high quality Polaroids and immediately gives you a picture of the kick, and the reception and the Polaroids are time coded. Then you have all the same information. You have the experience of two very real events and the knowledge of the time interval between them, but you don't have the flow of time that temporality provides. All you have are the events and the knowledge of their chronological order. But to function, that is all you really need. That would be a sad way to experience life. But in fact, we humans, as we get older, lose some of our vivid episodic memory with its temporality because it degrades to adynamic semantic memory, memory of the facts only without the temporality. Clearly then, illusions of time are highly desirable for day-to-day activities. The third time illusion is the false belief that we are living in the immediate present, when in reality, we live in a little bit in the past. On reflection, you already know this when stopping to realize that it takes time for the information to travel from your stub toe to your brain. That may seem like a negligible amount, and it is. However, we really live about half a second in the past, which is not negligible and has some horrendous consequences. Supposing you are driving a car and a boy runs in front of you. You brake and immediately thereafter experience what your brain thankfully did for you. That occurs at about 150 milliseconds. However, your brain needs more time than that to become aware of the event and to decide what to do. In fact, your brain is busy for a full half of a second after the boy runs on the road, long after the event is over. Fortunately, your brain moves that mental awareness backward in time to coincide approximately with what the boy did. That way, your awareness immediately follows the boy's actions. The long delay for us to become fully aware and construct a decision process to act occurs during the voltage rise of the brain. If a person is hooked up to an EEG, the voltage can be measured. When a person voluntarily moves a muscle, the voltage slowly rises over a half of a second to a peak before the muscle, represented here by M, contracts. Now, if that person is asked to press a key whenever she wishes, the readiness potential is noted to start about 500 milliseconds, half a second, before the key press, noted by M. And then if the person is asked when she thinks she made the wish to do so, represented by W, she indicates it at about 150 milliseconds just before the key press. It seems that the brain began the decision process to key press long before the conscious decision was expressed. How frustrating life would be if we did not have the illusion of living in the present. Consider that scenario of the boy running in front of your car again. Your foot reflexively brakes at 150 milliseconds later, and you experience that immediately. No problem there. But if your awareness of the boy running in front of your car does not occur until long after the brakes are hit, and perhaps even after the car has stopped, that is a problem. Why? Because you do not want to believe that your conscious decision to stop is pointless. It would cause a person to say something like, "So glad my brain reacted quickly, but why am I not in charge of my decisions?" Clearly, this phenomenon raises the question of free will and the lack thereof. This is not the place for that debate, but at least it is clear that illusions like this shape who we are by providing a sense of free will. The fourth illusion is the most extraordinary, that of persistence. It is the experience that we as individuals endure through time. It is often referred to as the enduring self illusion. We do not believe we are ephemeral, fleeting, disappearing, only to be replaced by another copy of ourselves. Ironically, we do question that possibility periodically. We notice that the changes in our body from birth to old age are drastic. And more than 95% of the cells are in fact replaced during a lifetime. But we insist that something is persistent. Perhaps it is the soul, perhaps it is the spirit. The thought of not being the same person is abhorrent. To convince you of this very counterintuitive illusion, I must share some ideas from physics. The conventional view of the average person is that an object like the Earth is at a point in time and space in the present, but thereafter disappears into the past. But Einstein said, think of our universe as a block of events that are all just there. And in this block universe, events do not disappear into the past. Someone, somewhere, somehow, potentially sees the light reflecting off of your lips, just as you see the light coming from the stars to your eyes. We are basically a universe of a gazillion events, and they do not vanish. Einstein said one other astonishing thing when his best friend, Besso, died. He consoled his friend's wife, saying, in effect, Besso is still there. That means there is more than one Besso, one dead in the present and one alive in the past. What's more, relativity theory does not preclude a time machine from being built one day to go through a wormhole and allow us to observe Besso, or ourselves, for that matter. Observe only, not interact. The conventional view of the average person is that we are singular, marching through time. However, variations of the block theory suggest that the block is not frozen with events. Rather, it is staticky with events coming into existence. These events happen, but some physicists say not necessarily successively. What counts, or is important, is the order of events, the narrative of our evolving universe. And the block may even expand into the future. Important for our purposes is that object persistence, the endurance of ourselves, is an illusion. To corroborate this cosmological view of persistence, my colleagues and I built a backwards in time machine. It is a virtual reality apparatus that stores visual information in the computer backpack. It has head tracking outriggers to know where the observer is located at any point in time. By pressing a button, he can go back in time up to 5 minutes to see his past. The experience of being in the past is real. So real that if he does not pay attention to local cues when going back and forth in time, he can get lost and not know if he is in the past or the present. Of more importance is what happens to the phenomena of persistence. We put an electronic toy dog on the floor that walks back and forth. So whenever the observer is looking to his right when having pressed the past button, he sees the dog who wandered there. But when he presses the button to return to the present, the dog is suddenly seen to be to his left. His immediate response is, this can't be the same dog. Why does he say that? Because it could not get from one side of the room to the other in a split second. If an object makes a sudden, large change in space or time, it does not appear to be the same. The illusion of persistence only occurs when the space-time interval is small. The illusion is lost at large intervals of space or time. Now imagine what would happen if there was no persistence, no enduring self-illusion. Guess what? You would not have the ability to time travel. Time travel is the ability to think of yourself performing activities in the past or future. If memories of your past with you in them are not considered to be you, your personality, your persona is limited to the present. You would live in what is called a permanent present. You would possess a very limited and shallow personality, a personality that is not extended. You would also not be able to travel into the future. If you cannot think of yourself as being in the future, you would be devoid of wishes and aspirations. Most animals cannot time travel, and there are a few patients who sustain brain trauma involving in particular the hippocampus who cannot time travel. Let me now summarize these illusions of time. They are: 1, motion, which provides an aesthetic continuity of events. 2, temporality, the before-after experience that gives us a more dynamic perception. 3, the illusion of living in the present, which puts us in charge of our actions. And 4, the illusion of persistence, the enduring self-illusion that extends our personality. Fortunately, natural selection has blessed us with these time illusions that profoundly shape who we are.